Margaret Meg Carson was 29 years old when she began building underground den deep in Montana, Territory Wilderness 15 miles from nearest settlement in August 1875, and the few trappers who occasionally passed her remote location thought she was either remarkably resourceful or completely mad. Woman living alone, 20 miles from civilization, building underground home like animal den, they'd say with mixture of admiration and concern. She's excavating cavern in hillside, storing years of firewood underground, planning to winter alone in wilderness. Either brilliant survival strategy or dangerous isolation. By March 1876, those same trappers were seeking shelter in Meg's underground den during unexpected late blizzard, discovering complex subterranean structures staying warm through coldest nights while storing enough dry firewood to last 5 years, proving that what appeared as madness was actually a masterpiece of wilderness engineering. Meg had arrived in Montana Territory in 1872 with husband Daniel, both experienced trappers from Minnesota, who'd worked Boundary Waters region trapping beaver and marten. Daniel taught Meg everything about wilderness survival, tracking animals, reading weather, building shelters, managing supplies for months of isolation. Daniel died in February 1874 from infection after leg injury during winter trapline check. Left Meg widowed at 28 with cabin, trapping equipment, and most importantly, complete wilderness skill set Daniel had insisted she master. "You need to know everything I know," he'd told her repeatedly. "Wilderness doesn't care about gender, only about competence and preparation." After Daniel's death, Meg continued trapping independently, proving she could survive and thrive alone in conditions that challenged experienced men. But she recognized fundamental problem with conventional cabin living in deep wilderness: firewood logistics. Montana wilderness winters required enormous firewood quantities, approximately 10 cords per season to heat through November to April cold. Cutting and hauling 10 cords annually while maintaining trap lines was exhausting work, consuming time better spent on productive trapping. Moreover, conventional firewood storage beside cabin meant cutting fresh wood each autumn. Wood cut in summer and autumn had high moisture content requiring full year to season properly. Burning green wood was inefficient, produced less heat, more smoke, wasted fuel. Ideal was cutting wood 2 to 3 years in advance, allowing proper seasoning. But storing 3 years of firewood, 30 cords total, required massive covered structure far exceeding normal shed capacity. And moisture was a persistent problem. Ground contact, rain penetration, humidity all degraded wood quality over multi-year storage. Meg conceived a radically different approach based on natural caves she'd discovered exploring her territory. Underground storage, utilizing geological features for protection, combined with excavated living quarters, creating integrated subterranean complex. The natural cave was located in hillside 3 miles from her cabin. Limestone formation, creating horizontal passage 12 feet deep, penetrating into hillside. Cave stayed consistently dry because geological layer above acted as waterproof barrier directing groundwater away from cave interior. Her vision was expanding this natural cave, creating 2-chamber underground complex. Front chamber as living quarters with heating system, back chamber as massive firewood storage vault, taking advantage of natural dryness and stable temperature. August 10, 1875, she began construction working alone with tools Daniel had accumulated. Picks, shovels, iron bars, black powder for rock breaking when necessary. Brutal physical labor, but she'd spent years doing physical wilderness work and had strength and endurance for sustained effort. Entrance widening began August 10th, working systematically with pick and iron bar. Original cave opening was narrow crack approximately 18 inches wide, requiring crawling to enter, usable for emergency shelter but inadequate for permanent dwelling with furniture and supplies. Needed minimum 6-foot wide entrance for comfortable access and material movement. Limestone at entrance was weathered and relatively soft, allowing careful pickwork. Would strike pick creating fractures in rock face, pry loose chunks with iron bar, haul debris outside in canvas bags. Worked methodically over 5 days, widening crack to 6-foot opening, smoothing edges creating clean entry. Set heavy timber door frame in widened entrance using 8-foot cedar logs cut from nearby stand. Cedar's natural rot resistance made it ideal for ground contact and weather exposure. Notched logs at corners creating frame, secured with iron spikes driven at angles. Hung double-thickness plank door, inner layer of vertical 2-inch boards, outer layer of horizontal 2-inch boards with moss insulation packed between. Created door approximately 4 inches thick, providing substantial thermal barrier. Heavy iron strap hinges salvaged from abandoned equipment allowed door to swing smoothly despite weight. Door opened inward, so snow accumulation outside wouldn't block access during Montana's heavy winter conditions. Living chamber excavation. August 15th through September first required removing approximately 80 cubic yards of limestone and earth. Worked from natural cave floor outward and upward, creating domed chamber 16 feet wide at base, 12 feet front to back, 8 feet high at dome peak. Domed ceiling was critical structural decision. Flat ceiling would require timber supports and concentrate stress on central span. Dome distributed weight from earth above evenly around curved surface, each section supporting neighbors through arched geometry. Same principle Roman architecture had used for 2,000 years. Dome was self-supporting, requiring no interior columns. Excavation technique varied by material encountered. Soft weathered limestone could be removed with pick. Strike to fracture, pry loose, remove chunks weighing 10 to 50 pounds. Harder limestone layers required different approach. Drill holes using steel drill and sledgehammer. Pack holes with black powder charges, light fuse, retreat outside, return after explosion to remove blasted rock. Black powder work was dangerous, requiring careful procedure Daniel had taught her. Would drill hole approximately 12 inches deep, using 1-inch diameter steel drill, rotating and striking with sledgehammer. Pack hole 3/4 full with black powder, insert fuse, pack remaining space with clay tamping creating pressure seal. Light fuse, giving 45 seconds to retreat to safe distance outside cave. Explosion would fracture rock, allowing removal with iron bar and shovel. Used approximately 10 pounds of black powder total over 3 weeks, creating approximately dozen blasts, removing hard layers. Each blast loosened perhaps 1 cubic yard of rock, requiring subsequent removal and debris hauling. Debris removal was constant physical labor. Loaded broken rock into canvas bags, each load approximately 60 pounds, carried through entrance, dumped in designated area. Made perhaps 40 trips daily over 6 weeks, moving 200 cubic yards total. Distributed debris around hillside, creating gradual earthen mounds that appeared natural from distance, concealing human excavation activity. Storage vault excavation. September 5th through 20th, expanded existing natural cave into massive firewood repository. Natural cave portion was approximately 8 feet wide, 12 feet deep, 6 feet high. Adequate for emergency use, but insufficient for multi-year supply storage. Expanded vault to 20 feet wide, 20 feet deep, 10 feet high, creating 4,000 cubic feet storage capacity. Calculate approximate cord storage. Standard cord is 128 cubic feet. With proper stacking and air circulation gaps, 4,000 cubic feet could hold approximately 25 to 30 cords. But Meg planned double-height stacking along walls, creating effective storage for 50 cords total. Vault excavation was easier than living chamber because existing cave provided starting structure. Rather than creating dome from scratch, was expanding existing cavity. Removed material from walls and ceiling, systematically widening and heightening chamber. Floor leveling in both chambers required careful attention to drainage. living chamber floor was smoothed and covered with flat limestone pieces, creating durable walking surface. Floor sloped slightly, perhaps 2 inches over 12-foot depth, toward entrance, allowing any water seepage to drain outward rather than pooling in chamber. Storage vault floor sloped more dramatically, 6 inches drop over 20-foot depth, directing any moisture toward drainage channel along back wall. Channel was carved into floor, lined with stones, creating pathway for water to flow to collection sump outside cave, preventing any moisture accumulation in firewood storage area. Floor in living chamber was smoothed and covered with flat stones, creating durable surface elevated slightly above lowest point, allowing any water seepage to drain to collection sump. Living quarters needed to stay absolutely dry for comfort and health. Ventilation system was critical for preventing carbon dioxide buildup and managing humidity. Cut ventilation shaft from living chamber ceiling angling upward through hillside, emerging disguised as natural rock outcrop 20 feet above cave entrance. 4-inch diameter shaft lined with stacked stone preventing collapse. Shaft created natural draft. Warm air from heating fire would rise, exit through shaft, draw fresh air in through entrance. Continuous circulation ensuring breathable air and removing moisture. Heating system used stone fireplace built against back wall of living chamber. Fireplace was substantial construction, 4 feet wide, 3 feet deep, chimney connecting to ventilation shaft. Used approximately 2 tons of stone, creating thermal mass that would absorb heat from fire and radiate warmth for hours. Stone construction served dual purpose, provided heating and created thermal break between warm living chamber and cool storage vault. Back wall of fireplace separated living quarters from storage vault, conducting minimal heat into storage area, keeping it cool and dry. Storage vault required careful engineering for maintaining dry conditions over years. Natural cave portion already stayed dry from geological waterproofing, but expanded excavation needed drainage and ventilation management. Floor sloped slightly toward drainage channel, running along lowest edge. Any moisture, from condensation, seepage, or humidity, would drain to channel, flow to sump outside cave, preventing accumulation in storage area. Cut secondary ventilation shaft from storage vault ceiling to exterior, creating air circulation. Vault ventilation was separate from living chamber ventilation, maintaining different atmospheric conditions. Living quarters warm and dry, storage vault cool and dry. Firewood stacking in vault used elevation technique, keeping wood off floor. Built platforms using log rails, creating slat systems, elevating lowest course 12 inches, allowing air circulation beneath. Stacked firewood in organized cords, with air gaps promoting continued drying and preventing moisture accumulation. Construction was complete by September 20th, creating remarkable subterranean complex invisible from distance, warm and comfortable in living quarters, capable of storing massive firewood quantities in optimal dry conditions. She spent October through November 1875 cutting and hauling firewood, beginning ambitious multi-year accumulation strategy that would distinguish her approach from conventional annual cutting. Traditional trapper approach was cutting current year's needs, 10 cords each autumn for immediate winter use. This created annual labor burden and meant burning wood that was minimally seasoned, often cut just months before use at 25 to 30% moisture. Meg's strategy was cutting 20 cords, first autumn, 10 for immediate 1875 to 76 winter, 10 additional stored for future seasons. Would repeat this pattern 1876 autumn, cutting another 20 cords, 10 for 1876 to 77 winter, 10 for reserve. By third autumn, would have accumulated 50 cord reserve, providing 5-year supply buffer. Cutting 20 cords required systematic approach over 8 weeks. Would travel to selected timber stands identifying dead standing trees, already partially seasoned from dying while standing, requiring less additional drying time. preferred ash and oak when available, hardwoods providing maximum heat per cord, but used available dead timber regardless of species. Felling used crosscut saw for trees exceeding 12 inches diameter, axe for smaller timber. Each tree would be limbed, removing branches, bucked into 16-inch lengths using measuring stick for consistency, split to 4-inch average diameter using wedges and maul. Split wood was stacked at cutting site in temporary cords, creating air-drying piles. Would return with horse and travois after accumulating half-cord at each site, hauling to underground vault. The travois hauling system was remarkably efficient for wilderness transport. Travois consisted of 2 long poles, 12-foot lodge poles, lashed together at one end, creating triangle. Horse wore simple harness, allowing poles to drag behind. Wide end elevated on horse's shoulders, narrow end dragging ground. Could pile half-cord of split wood on travois, approximately 4 cubic feet, weighing perhaps 400 pounds, and horse could drag load through forest over rough terrain, requiring no road or trail. Made approximately 40 travois trips, hauling 20 cords total from various cutting sites to underground den. At vault, would unload travois, carry wood through entrance, stack systematically in organized cords along vault walls. Stacking used elevation technique, built platforms using 4-inch diameter log rails spaced every 2 feet, creating slat system. Lowest firewood course sat on rails elevated 12 inches above vault floor, allowing air circulation beneath, preventing ground moisture contact. Stacked each cord with visible air gaps between pieces, 1/4-inch spacing minimum, promoting continued drying through air movement. Stacked cords 6 feet high along vault walls, used double-depth stacking, creating approximately 12 linear feet per cord, 50 cords total, occupying perhaps 600 linear feet of wall space in 20 by 20 vault. Organization system used location coding. Cords, cut 1875 autumn, stacked along north wall. 10 cords for immediate use nearest living chamber connection for easy access. 10 reserve cords toward back. Cords, cut subsequent autumns, would stack along east, south and west walls, creating rotation system. Would always burn oldest wood first, maximizing seasoning time. Wood cut 1875 would burn starting 1877 after 2 years seasoning. Wood cut 1876 would burn starting 1878. Continuous rotation ensuring fuel was always 2+ years seasoned, achieving optimal 12 to 15% moisture. November brought first serious cold testing underground den as winter dwelling and evaluating thermal performance against conventional cabin. Temperature outside dropped to -10 overnight, November 15th. First sustained below zero cold of season. Conventional cabin 3 miles away, Meg still owned it as backup shelter, would require substantial fire, maintaining comfortable warmth at -10 exterior. Estimated conventional cabin with no fire would equilibrate to perhaps 5 degrees above exterior, at -10 exterior, achieving -5 interior from minimal insulation and lack of thermal mass. Underground living chamber with no fire maintained 48 degrees interior, while exterior was -10, 58-degree differential without any heating. This passive thermal stability came from Earth's constant temperature. At 8-foot depth, Earth temperature in Montana stays approximately 45 to 50 degrees year-round, regardless of surface temperature swings. Living chamber surrounded by Earth naturally equilibrated near Earth temperature, approximately 48 degrees measured that morning. Simply being underground provided baseline warmth, requiring minimal additional heating for comfort. Small fire in stone fireplace raised interior to 55 degrees, comfortable working temperature requiring modest wood consumption. Burned approximately half normal amount compared to conventional cabin, achieving same interior comfort, reducing winter fuel consumption from 10 cords to approximately 5 cords total. December brought 3 trappers discovering underground den, revealing her innovation to wider wilderness community. George Fletcher, Thomas Whitfield and Lars Olsen were running distant trap lines, stopped at Meg's original cabin, finding it cold with note directing to new location. Followed directions 3 miles, finding what appeared to be natural hillside with barely visible door set in stone frame. Knocked cautiously, uncertain if dwelling was occupied. Meg emerged, inviting them inside. Trappers stepped from -15 exterior into comfortable underground living quarters, instantly feeling 50-degree warmth despite seeing only small fire burning. Were amazed by contrast. "You've excavated dwelling in hillside," Fletcher said, looking around stone-walled chamber with domed ceiling barely visible in firelight. "Living underground like denning animal, but warmer than my cabin in settlement. How is this maintaining such warmth with minimal fire?" Meg explained thermal mechanics, showing them how Earth's surrounding chamber stayed constant 48 degrees, regardless of exterior cold. Showed ventilation shaft creating circulation, stone fireplace providing additional heat, domed ceiling distributing warmth efficiently. Then showed them storage vault through connecting passage, 20 by 20 chamber with 15 cords already stacked along walls in organized rows. Trappers were stunned by scale. "You have 15 cords stored underground in single location," Whitfield said, examining stacked cords. "Most trappers struggle cutting 10 cords annually and storing it in makeshift sheds. You're accumulating multi-year reserve in purpose-built vault. Eventually, we'll have 50 cords total," Meg explained. 5-year supply eliminating annual cutting pressure. Once reserve is complete, we'll cut approximately 10 cords annually to replace consumption, maintaining 50-cord buffer. No more scrambling each autumn for winter fuel. Olsen examined firewood quality closely. Selected piece from stack, cut 14 months earlier, October 1874, checked moisture using trapper's test, held near fire watching steam production. Minimal steam indicated wood was well seasoned, despite being cut just over 1 year ago. "This wood is drier than wood I cut 2 years ago, and stored in conventional above-ground covered shed," Olsen observed. "Underground vault with proper ventilation is achieving better seasoning than my surface storage. Stable, cool temperature and continuous air circulation is optimal for moisture removal." Through winter, 1875 to 76, word spread among wilderness trappers about Meg's underground den. Several visited out of curiosity, discovering remarkable subterranean dwelling that stayed warm through coldest nights, using minimal firewood while storing massive reserve supply. February brought unexpected test when late-season blizzard, unusually severe for late winter, caught 3 trappers unprepared 20 miles from settlement. George Patterson, James Chen, and young Eric Peterson were checking distant trap lines when blizzard struck, dropping temperature to -25, with high winds creating whiteout conditions. Made desperate journey to Meg's underground den, arriving exhausted and showing early cold stress. Meg brought them inside immediately, getting them out of lethal conditions. Underground living chamber, naturally warm at base temperature plus small fire, provided immediate life-saving warmth. The 3 trappers stayed 4 days, February 18th through 21st, while blizzard raged outside. Underground den proved perfect storm shelter. Completely protected from wind, naturally warm, requiring minimal heating, provisioned with food and firewood from Meg's reserves. "Your underground shelter saved our lives," Patterson acknowledged, when conditions moderated enough for travel. "We would have died attempting to reach settlement in those conditions. This subterranean complex is superior winter dwelling to conventional cabin. Warmer, more stable temperature, protected from wind, requires less fuel." Spring 1876 brought recognition of Meg's innovation from wider trapping community. Her underground den became known landmark, Meg's Den, on informal trappers' maps, both as navigation reference and emergency shelter location. She lived in underground den 8 years, 1875 through 1883. During that time, accumulated full 5-year firewood supply, 50 cords stored in vault with continuous rotation, keeping supply fresh. Would cut approximately 10 cords annually, use 10 cords, maintaining 50 cord reserve. The multi-year storage created unexpected benefit beyond supply security, seasoning optimization. Wood cut in year 1 would season 2 to 3 years, before burning achieving optimal 15 to 12% moisture. Burning 3-year seasoned wood was remarkably efficient. Clean combustion, maximum heat, minimal smoke. Married in 1883 to trapper named Carl Magnusson, who was impressed by her wilderness competence and underground dwelling innovation. Together they expanded underground complex, adding second living chamber and additional storage vault, creating substantial subterranean homestead. Lived there until 1895, when they built conventional cabin after accumulating wealth from successful trapping, allowing more comfortable above-ground living. But maintained underground den as emergency shelter and firewood storage, continuing to use vault for multi-year wood accumulation. Meg lived until 1941, dying at 95. Her obituary in Montana newspaper mentioned the underground den deep in wilderness that became legendary among trappers and wilderness homesteaders. The den itself remained usable into 1920s when Forest Service discovered it during wilderness mapping. Documented as remarkable example of wilderness engineering, properly ventilated, geologically sound, still dry and stable 50 years after construction. Modern spelunking and engineering analysis recognizes multiple sophisticated elements in Meg's design. Underground placement, utilizing Earth's constant temperature for passive thermal regulation. Separate ventilation for living quarters and storage vault maintaining different atmospheric conditions. Geological assessment, selecting naturally dry cave for expansion rather than purely excavated structure. Multi-year firewood storage, taking advantage of stable dry conditions for optimal seasoning. The story is about widow who continued wilderness life alone rather than returning to settlement after husband's death, who recognized inefficiency in annual firewood cutting and conceived multi-year accumulation strategy, who built underground complex combining living quarters with massive storage vault using geological features and careful engineering, who proved that wilderness isolation didn't require suffering. Proper preparation and innovative shelter design created comfortable, sustainable living. Because sometimes the best shelter isn't the most visible. Sometimes living underground provides superior thermal performance to conventional construction. Sometimes accumulating 5 years' supply is more efficient than cutting annually. And sometimes what appears as animal den is actually sophisticated dwelling, proving that wilderness living can be comfortable and sustainable with proper engineering and determination.